Netroots Nation is going on right now, and that's a gathering of online progressives. It's a very large convention. NBC's Mark Murray was there, and he noticed that people were complaining that Obama has not been as progressive as they had hoped. And that's a very legitimate complaint, of course, if you ask me. But Mark says, no, we've got it wrong. He says, quote, here's something to consider. It's the country, not the system, that's stacked against liberals and progressives. The real problem is that the country is not liberal, it's center-right. Now, at first, I was mad at him, okay? Because I know it's wrong, and I've heard it a million times. And then I thought, you know what? It's not his fault. It's conventional wisdom. Everybody in Washington, every political reporter thinks, this is a center-right country, this is a center-right country, this is a center-right country, because that's all they've ever heard, right? And then, of course, they have that one poll, which is enormously misleading, which I'm going to tell you about right now, that they hang their hat on. Conservatives throw this poll at them. They say, all right, when they did a poll and they asked people, are you liberal or conservative? In 2008, 25% said liberal and 36% said conservative. That's it. There's more conservatives in the country than liberals. It's super obvious. Except it's not at all obvious because liberal has become a dirty word. Because for 20, 30 years, Rush Limbaugh, Fox News, we said liberal, liberal. Whereas conservative is a proud word. I'm a proud conservative. I'll give you a perfect example of it. When Republicans run for office, they talk about who's more conservative. And they brag, no, I'm more conservative. When Democrats run for office, does anybody say, no, I'm more liberal? Oh, no, I'm the more liberal candidate. No. They, in fact, oftentimes do the exact opposite. No, I'm a centrist. I'm a moderate. I'm reasonable. I'm not a wild-eyed liberal, right? Because liberals become a dirty word. So when you get to the real issues, though, there are an enormous number of polls, and let's see what they come out with. Is it a progressive or is it a conservative country? Well, Media Matters and Campaign for America's Future, now they're progressive groups, okay? But what they did was they took polls from non-progressive groups, totally nonpartisan groups, American National Election Studies, the General Social Survey, and Gallup polls. And they collected the data to see, hey, which way does the country go? So, on the role of government, 69% of Americans believe the government should care for those who can't care for themselves. That is the central liberal philosophy. And Rush Limbaugh will tell you that is not what he's in favor of. 69% of the country believes that. Twice as many people want, quote, the government to provide many more services, even if it means an increase in spending, as want government to provide fewer services in order to reduce spending. So that goes 43% to 20%. So again, central liberal or conservative position. Do you want the government to spend more money for services or no, not less services and spend less? 2-1, the liberal position wins. Now, how about the economy? 77% of Americans think that Congress should increase the minimum wage. 66% believe that, quote, upper income people pay too little in taxes. 53% feel the Bush administration's tax cuts have failed because they have increased the deficit and caused cuts in government programs. Once again, liberal, liberal, liberal. And significantly so, 77%, 66%, etc. But that's not what you hear in the media, right? And these people who are answering these questions, they might not even think that they are liberal because they got immersed with all that propaganda too and say, oh, I'm not a liberal. Oh, but do I want the government to spend more money? Of course, we should care for each other. What's the matter with you? You're not a decent human being, right? And where should we get the money? Well, the upper income brackets have more money, so we should raise taxes on them. But they don't think they're a liberal, right? But in reality, of course, these are all liberal positions. I'm just getting warmed up. Let me give you a couple more, okay? Because it's on almost every single issue. Social issues. 61% of Americans support embryonic stem cell research. 62% want to protect Roe versus Wade. Clear victories, again, for liberal positions. On security, 60% feel the federal government should do more about restricting the kinds of guns that people can purchase. 60%? I thought 100% of the country was pro-guns. What happened? Because they're not reporting it right. You see, it's not a matter of do we take away your guns. When you ask, hey, should we have some restrictions on guns? 60% of the country go, yeah, of course we should. That's a liberal position. All right, the environment. 75% of Americans would be willing to pay more for electricity if it were generated by renewable sources to help reduce global warming. 79% want higher emission standards for automobiles. Liberal, liberal. Overwhelmingly so. Energy. 52% of Americans believe, quote, the best way for the U.S. to reduce its reliance on foreign oil is to have the government invest in alternative energy sources. 68% say that the public thinks that U.S. energy policy is better solved by conservation, not more production. In other words, 68% don't drill, baby, drill, do more conservation. Liberal, okay? But if you use the word, oh, no, I'm not a liberal, although every one of my positions is liberal. How about health care? 69% of Americans think it is the responsibility of the federal government to make sure all Americans have access to health coverage. 69%. 76% find access to health care more important than maintaining, for example, Bush's tax cuts, and 3 in 5 would be willing to have their own taxes increased to achieve universal coverage. And as we saw as the health care debate, and these are all studies from the last set of years, okay? So it's not just today's studies. It encompasses a longer period of time. And as we saw in the health care debate, every single poll said we want a public option. We want the government to give us an option. And yet those were all ignored. When you go issue by issue, America is definitively liberal, progressive, whatever you want to call it. Except when you call it liberal, the one poll says, no, we're not liberals, because Rush Limbaugh and Fox News made it a dirty word. But we've got to drill this through the mainstream media's head, because we are not a center-right country. When it comes to every issue, we are a center-left country. All right. I'm just trying to do my part.